This is our third lesson on rational expressions. We're going to add and subtract them. Good place to start is, of course, just practice adding and subtracting some fractions. Notice our first guy here, we don't have a common denominator, so we need one. 3, we can only factor down to 3. 4, we can factor down to 2 times 2. So our lowest common denominator is going to be 3 times 2 times 2, otherwise known as 12. So to get that, I'm going to multiply this fraction by 4 over 4, which is of course the same as multiplying by 1. And I'm going to multiply this fraction by 3 over 3. So we're not changing the value of the fraction, we're just getting a common denominator. So that gives us 8 over 12 plus 9 over 12 equals 17 over 12. Okay, our second guy here, I think it's pretty clear our lowest common denominator is going to be 20, so I'm going to multiply that by 4 over 4. So I get 12 over 20 minus 9 over 20 equals 3 over 20. Okay, and our last guy, 6 equals 2 times 3, and 9 equals 3 times 3. So our lowest common denominator, we need to have at least 1 2, and we have to have at least 3 3's. So it's going to be 2 times 3 is 18. So I'm going to have to multiply that by 3 over 3. I have to multiply that by 2 over 2. I get 3 over 18 minus 14 over 18 equals negative 11 over 18. Okay, notice question 1a is pretty much exactly the same. First thing we need to do is make sure we don't divide by 0, so we say x can't be 0. And 7 is just 7. 3x is 3 times x. So our lowest common denominator, we're going to have at least one 7, at least one 3, and at least one x. So that's going to be 21x. So I'd need to multiply this guy by 3x over 3x. And I need to multiply that guy by 7 over 7. So I'll get 6x squared over 21x plus 35 over 21x, where x can't be 0. And now that I have a common denominator, I can just combine those. So I get 6x squared plus 35 all over 21x, where x can't be 0. Okay, and then the last thing we want to check is whether or not we can reduce this at all. I can't factor anything out of the top here, so there's no way I can reduce anything top and bottom. And b will do the same thing. A and b, neither of them can be 0. Those are our non-permissibles. So 5ab is the same as 5 times a times b. And 4b squared is the same as 2 times b times b. So our lowest common denominator is going to have at least one 5. It's going to have at least 2 2's. It's going to have at least one a, and it's going to have at least 2 b's. So that's going to be 20ab squared. Which means that this guy, I'm going to have to multiply top and bottom by 4b. And this guy, I'm going to have to multiply top and bottom by 5a. So I'm going to have 16b over 20ab squared minus 15a all over 20ab squared, where a and b can't be 0. And the best I can do with that, because I don't have any like terms, is just write it like this. Oops. And notice again, I can't factor anything out of the top, so there's no way I can cancel anything top and bottom. Okay, and pretty much the same with 2 again. I'm just going to put brackets around these guys to remind me that they're essentially there. It's x plus 5. It's all of x plus 5 over 8x. Okay, and let's get our non-permissibles here. X can't be 0. And 8x is the same as 2 times 2 times 2 times x. 6x squared is the same as 2 times 3 times x times x. So our lowest common denominator, we need at least 3 2's, need at least 1 3, and we need at least 2 x's. So that's going to be 24x squared. Okay, well to get 24x squared, I'm going to have to multiply top and bottom over here by 3, or multiply that one by 3x over 3x, which is the same as 1 because x can't be 0. And over here I'm going to multiply that by 4 over 4. Notice that we need to rainbow this stuff into these brackets. So I get 3x squared plus 5x all over 24x squared. And x still can't equal 0. Okay, now I can add those together at collecting like terms. And again, notice there's no common factor in the top, so I can't reduce that any further. And b is exactly the same again. So we've got, actually, maybe I should move this over a bit. We've got c and d can't equal to 0. And I got 3cd is just 3 times c times d. I've got 5c squared d equals 5 times c times c times d. So my lowest common denominator is going to have at least a 3, a 5, 2 c's, and a d. Oops. I said 5 and I wrote 3. Got at least 1 3, 1 5, 2 c's, and a d. So that's going to be 15c squared d. Okay, and to get that, I'm going to have to multiply top and bottom over here. Oops, forgot to put my brackets on these to remind myself that we're going to be multiplying those through the entire top. So I got 5c over 5c here, and this guy I'm going to have to multiply by 3 over 3. And again, need to multiply those in. So I get 15c squared minus 10c over 15c squared d minus 3c plus 24 over 15c squared d, where c and d can't equal 0. And notice this negative is going to get multiplied through those brackets as I subtract these two. So I get 15c squared minus 10c minus 3c minus 24. And collect like terms. And again, notice I don't have any common factor in the top, so I won't be able to divide anything out of top and bottom to reduce that anymore. So my final answer is there, remembering that c and d can't equal 0 to avoid division by 0. And 3 is slightly different. We've got 3 terms now instead of 2. Doesn't really change anything. Need a common denominator for all of them after I say that a can't be 0 to avoid division by 0. So 2 is just 2. 4a squared is going to be 2 times a times a. And 3a is going to be 3 times a. So our lowest common denominator will have to have at least 2 2's, a 3, and 2 a's. So that is going to be 12a squared. So the first guy, 5 over 2, I'm going to have to multiply by 6a squared over 6a squared. Second guy, I'm going to have to multiply by 3 over 3. And third guy, I'm going to have to multiply by 4a over 4a. And of course, all of that is possible because a can't be 0. Oops, there's a 4 there I missed. And a still can't be 0. So I get 30a squared plus 8a minus 9 over 12a squared, where a can't be 0. There's no common factor in anywhere in the top, so I can't reduce that anymore. There is our final answer. And our last question, really not very interesting, just really big. Let's throw brackets on the top of all of those. And we need to remember that z can't be 0. Okay, and let's look for our lowest common denominator here. So I got 8z squared is 2 times 2 times 2 times z times z. I got 3z is just 3 times z. And I got 6 equals 3 times 2. So my lowest common denominator is going to have 3 2's. It's going to have 1 3. And it's going to have 2 z's. So that's going to be 24z squared. Which means my first guy, I'm going to have to multiply by 3 over 3. Second guy, I'm going to have to multiply by 8z over 8z. And third guy, I need to multiply by 4z squared over 4z squared. Which is all possible because z isn't 0, so I won't have division by 0 when I do that. And remember, I need to rainbow all of these guys in. Oops, that's not 8z squared then, that's 24z squared. And so is that guy. That's why we did this, to get those common denominators. Okay, and now we just need to make sure we multiply that negative through here when we add all these together. Okay, and now we just need to collect like terms. There we go, all done. Okay, so notice you need to find the lowest common denominator. This is probably the step most easily messed up on, that you need to multiply that 3 through everything in the top every time. And then, yeah, just once you have a common denominator, add everything together, collect like terms, and you're done.